What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video. Now in this one, I'm going to show you how to build an awesome 1440p gaming PC build that doesn't break the bank. A system that's frankly epic for 1080p gaming too, delivering competitive frame rates in all the latest titles. It's a build that should look pretty epic once it's finished, uses some hardware that's particularly awesome value right now with all those Black Friday and Christmas holiday savings, and shouldn't be too difficult to put together. Let's do this. The GeekaByte G6X is here, packing plenty of power with the Intel Core HX processor lineup and NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series laptop GPUs for powerful gaming, Dolby Atmos integration, power delivery 3.0 for fast Type-C charging, and a 90% screen-to-bezel ratio provide an immersive experience with all the home comforts. The 165Hz refresh rate and 16:10 aspect ratio make it great for gaming on the go or getting work done. Learn more at the first links in the description below. Of course, today's build is all about maximizing value for money and getting the best price to performance metrics possible. However, I also want the system to look good, and I'm using some hardware that punches above its weight class as far as price is concerned. Before going into the rest of the components though, let's start off with the CPU and the GPU, because these are the main parts in a gaming PC in terms of performance. Now let's start with the CPU. This is the AMD Ryzen 5 9600X, and before anybody mashes their keyboards in the comments going, James, why would you buy this? It's not that much quicker than the last generation 7600X. And while you would be right, the price difference between these two chips is now really nominal. At the time of recording, this chip is currently on Newegg for under $250, and the Amazon pricing that I've seen is fairly similar too. But latest pricing for all retailers, Amazon included, will be linked down below. For the nominal performance increase you get over the Ryzen 5 7600X, I think it's a worthwhile bet. And what I predicted would happen when Ryzen 9000 launched has happened. It would launch, everyone would say it's too expensive, and all the CPUs would fall in price quite dramatically, which is what always happens when AMD launches basically anything. The GPU is a similar story actually. This is the RX 7800 XT. Now the TUF model is one of my favorites. It's not Asus's most expensive, not their least expensive SKU. However, I would recommend just picking up whatever 7800 XT makes sense. 3 fans on the cooler is nice to have, but it's probably a little bit overkill. Again, I've seen these go as low as $439 US. Here in the UK, similar pound value as well, which is frankly unbelievable and puts it closer to NVIDIA's 4060 Ti than it does NVIDIA's 4070, which is kind of nuts. Now this combo is going to deliver fantastic performance when it comes to 1080p and 1440p gaming. If your emphasis is more on 1440p, you can afford to sacrifice the CPU down to say the Ryzen 5 7600 non-X, as at the higher resolution your GPU is bound to be more of the bottleneck. For lower res gaming, 1080p, you're going to want a slightly quicker CPU, and the newer X derivative is what I would pick up. Now, of course, this build has a predominantly white theme with a few black and more grey accents. The motherboard fits perfectly into that. This is the Aorus B650 Elite AX Ice. Yes, you could go slightly cheaper on this board, but I wouldn't. This board is going to give you plenty of connectivity. You get high-speed Wi-Fi, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, plenty of USB Type-C, and 14 VRM power phases. One of the big things though about this board that I really like is how amazing it looks. I think that GeekaByte have done a phenomenal job. Maybe in the past you could say some of their designs are a bit too simple. I think this is frankly glorious, and I absolutely love it. You can see what I was talking about earlier with the I/O. You've got that Wi-Fi 6 at the top, a nice helping of high-speed USB-C and Type-A ports, and that super fast Ethernet. So really great job from GeekaByte on this board, and it's going to be perfect for the build today. Before going ahead and building onto the motherboard, I should probably tell you what RAM and SSD I have selected, and these are two of my favorites when it comes to value for money. This is the T-Force Delta DDR5 RGB. This kit is 6400 megahertz and fairly low latency. You want 32 gigs of RAM in a build, 16 just is going to cause bottlenecking and isn't enough in the present day. Storage-wise, I've gone for a 1TB Crucial P3 Plus. Not the world's fastest drive, but it's more than quick enough for what we need in this system, and it's going to save us a nice bit of money, which is good. While we're talking about the parts, we might as well finish off a couple of the others before getting this system built, with the CPU cooler and power supply being two pretty nice parts in this build as far as selection goes. Corsair's RM750E is a great value, affordable option, 80 plus gold, cybernetics platinum, and it conforms to ATX3, giving us that newer, more reliable power supply standard with lower idle power consumption, PCI Gen 5 support, good to see, and Montage Hyperflow ARGB 360 will be providing all of the cooling for today's system. This might seem like a peculiar choice, but you can get it for like well under $100. I've seen this thing for like $70 US, which is frankly incredible and puts puts it more in the realms of a lot of the CPU air coolers out there than it does the liquid coolers. One of the main reasons I've picked this as well is that the 3 fans are going to really help with airflow inside of the system generally and at the top of our case today, giving us better air pressure and better temperatures throughout, as well as a cooler CPU. Talking to the case, this is a really interesting chassis from a brand you might not have heard of. This is the Dark Flash DY470, and I have to say, so far, I'm pretty impressed. I've been having to play with this case before filming today's video, and you can see there's plenty of glass. We've got glass on the side, a little strip of glass on the top, glass on the front, so very much fish tank. Support for really long GPUs down here, radiator and liquid cooling support at the bottom and the top. You get 4 ARGB fans included as standard, 3 reverse intake fans, meaning the blades look really very nice, and 1 on exhaust. These fans have got this cool kind of mirror effect, which is really good to see, and they use the standard 3-pin 5-volt ARGB connector. I/O is really easy to get to, power, reset, USB-A, C, and your audio ports, and we get nice features like GPU support brackets to prevent things like GPU sag, and support for horizontal and vertically mounted GPUs. At the rear of the case, you can see we've got that rear chamber, some captive thumb screws on the rear panel to keep it in place. You can see they've even gone to the effort of giving us white front panel cables. A lot of other white cases from big brands overlook this important consideration. Drive mounting, room for the power supply at the top, and as you can see, the rear of our 320mm reverse intake fans. So let's begin, shall we? And the first step in any build is going to be to go ahead and take your motherboard, processor, RAM, and of course the SSD, as these are the parts you're going to want to install first of all. I'm going to start by going ahead and opening up the CPU socket, lining the triangles up on the processor and dropping this into place before adding our RAM into the 2nd and 4th DIMM slots, that's counting from the socket outwards, and popping the NVMe SSD under the top M.2 heat shield. That's going to provide nice cooling and keep the drive nice and chilly. One thing that I always do as well before moving the board over into the case is do a little bit of CPU cooler prep. So I'm going to open up our Hyperflow and just figure out exactly how it's mounted around AMD processors so that I can make my life a little easier later on. Looks like this is going to be really simple. The Hyperflow uses the stock AMD plastic brackets. If you look around the actual CPU socket, what will happen is these will click into place. This bracket right here will actually go around the bottom of the CPU water block, and that's going to happen a little something, if I can get it off, yes, thank you, a little something like this. So that will slide on, and you can hopefully see a bit easier how that whole mechanism is actually going to function, meaning there is no prep to do at this stage, which is good news. So what I'm going to do next is pop the motherboard over into the case. Check out these standoff locations. In this chassis, they're actually not quite right. We are missing 3 down the far side. So the ones that are circled on your screen now, I need to add a standoff into, and then I'm going to go ahead and slide the motherboard into place. So that's just going to slot through there, get it over those standoffs. The raised center standoff is going to hold it in place, and then use the included motherboard screws you get with the case to secure it down. 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. I'm going to do the cooler next up. I really like this trend now. Montech aren't the only ones, but I'm glad they're doing it, where actually the fans come pre-installed onto the radiator. One thing I like about this cooler is you get clips on the tubes. Performance of it as well is really, really good. That's the main thing we care about with any of this stuff, is that the performance is decent. And this thing for the money is bloody brilliant. I'm going to be popping this at the top of the case. So it's going to go around about here. The only thing to bear in mind is it's a slightly more kind of cool shade of white than the case itself, but hopefully, he says, once it's in, it will look okay. Now, I'm going to need to remove the top panel, which is a little something like so, to uncover our radiator mounts. Now, weirdly, the case is kind of at a slope, so the radiator is actually going to kind of slope downwards, which is absolutely fine and going to look that little bit different. I like as well this glass at the front. I've not seen, to my knowledge, anyone else do that. It gives it a nice fish tank from all angles kind of feel. So I'm going to secure the radiator down to these rails at the top. They only support 120mm form factors, so 120, 240, 360. There's no 280mm support here. And then fasten the block down over the CPU. Remembering, of course, the thermal paste. Don't forget the thermal paste. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. A lot of trouble. It's a bad time with no thermal paste. Yeah, that looks all right to me. Now, next step is I'm going to say the power supply. It's tempting at this stage to do the GPU, but in truth, that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The cables and wiring is then harder to get to. By the way, I bought this online and it's changed my life. It's like a screw organizer, like a bit of big one like you get with those posh cases, but it's massive and it was very cheap. I'll link it below alongside everything today for latest pricing and availability. You never know, you might bag yourself a deal. Let's get this thing out of the box. Corsair have really got some good stuff out at the moment. This power supply is a great example. I've seen this priced quite competitively, which is good. Now you might be thinking, James, this is a power supply with black cables in a white gaming PC build. What's going on? Well, I'm actually going to be adding some white PSU extensions into this build for all of the components, for the CPU, for the motherboard, and for the GPU. So the power supply color and the cable color actually doesn't matter. I'm going to be adding in the CPU, GPU, motherboard, and a SATA power connection for all of the parts in today's build, hooking those up to the power supply and then screwing this into the rear with the fan pulling air from the back panel of the case. While I'm here, I'll also do the front panel cables. It's just one less job that needs ticking off. HD audio down to the bottom left, JFP1 to the right hand side, and then of course a USB 3 Type A and Type C, which go to the right of the motherboard today. Nice and simple. The final order of business is the graphics card. Ideally, as I said earlier, I would have gone for a white one, but it's so hard to find white AMD SKUs. Nvidia, you've just got more options. I'll find some white alternatives and link them below. You just may have to be a little more flexible with the budget if that's something that's a red line. This though is as close as we can get because it's sort of a grey silvery colour, meaning it's going to be a little lighter and hopefully tune in to some of the more silver dark grey accents on the board down here and on this I/O cover. Now you can see plenty of GPU clearance in this case. Looking at it, it's the second and third PCI lane slots that need to be removed. Keep hold of the screws obviously because you're going to be using these to fasten the card into place. Someone asked me in a video recently why it's always the second and third, why it's never like the first. If you put a micro ATX motherboard in, which is obviously a shorter board, it's got less sort of height, we'll use the top slot. But on these ATX boards, they put NVMe drives there instead. It's just the way it's gone. But in short, the top one is there basically for MATX users. Push back the clip on the PCI slot, slide the card into place. Look at that. A couple of PSU cable extensions will help to tie in the white theme. And of course, we're going to screw it into place to stop it from going anywhere. Just like that, the build is pretty much done. All that's left to do is just finish tidying up these wires, get the RGB all working, and then of course we'll look at performance. But first, it's time for an epic GeekaWhat montage. Looking pretty good. I have to say, I do like this case, and the fans are at least a little bit different. But the main thing though is performance. So let's take a look at that and start with no other game than Fortnite. 1080p competitive settings, that's with everything tuned down to low except the render distance, which is pushed to far. This system pulled in over 340 FPS, giving you those super competitive esports frame rates. Apex Legends, which you can see behind me, is next up on the list today. I tested this at the higher 1440p resolution, high settings across the board, no Nvidia ray tracing or DLSS of course to contend with here, and the average frame rate wasn't as high as Fortnite, but was still pretty damn good at around 242 frames per second on average. Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 was really good too, over 130 frames per second here, again testing at 1440p high settings, with decent 1% lows too of still over 60 frames per second, meaning your frame rate here is going to be pretty consistent all in all. Alan Wake 2 performed really well too. We did test here at 1440p with FSR enabled. Specifically, it was set to the quality preset, which delivered a frame rate on average of 128 FPS. We didn't test Alan Wake with ray tracing on AMD as you just don't get as good results as what you'll find on Nvidia GPUs, but the performance here was still pretty good for my liking. Hogwarts Legacy at 1440p high delivered a pretty interesting frame rate, 111 frames per second on average, all the ones. An RPG game where frame rate's arguably not actually as important as the likes of Fortnite, Apex or Call of Duty. However, we still saw great frame rates well into the triple digits. Cyberpunk is next up, and another title which typically favours Nvidia, so let's see how AMD get on. 1440p, high settings, FSR set to quality, frame generation enabled and ray tracing turned on. Wow, that is a mouthful. And in the in-game benchmark mode, we saw a really impressive 104 frames per second on average, which I was pretty pleased with. The final game on the list also uses similar settings to Cyberpunk, 1440p high, FSR on, frame generation on. No ray tracing here, which does help the frame rate with a 98 FPS average. In conclusion then, this build is a really great value system for those of you looking for something pretty punchy at 1440p without spending a fortune. If I could change anything, maybe I would go for a white GPU, should, I be able to more easily find one in the 7900 GRE lineup, and hopefully AMD's next-gen cards give us a few more color options. Let me know what you think of this build down in the comments below. You can find latest part pricing and availability for everything mentioned today in the description too. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.